Every Shopify store is using Google Analytics, but not everyone is using Google Search Console. I think because Analytics is pretty easy to connect. There's a place in the Shopify dashboard where you add your Google Analytics code or ID, whereas for Search Console, there's nothing like that. So people maybe get confused and just neglect it, just forget about it. But it's actually really important that you set up Search Console if you want to be found organically through Google Search. So if you found this video, I'm assuming you already know what Google Search Console is. The rest of this video is going to be a tutorial. However, I'll quickly spend 1 minute to recap the 3 main functions of Google Search Console, just in case. The first function is, of course, SEO research. So Search Console will let you see the exact phrases that people are typing into Google and then finding your site. It'll let you see which pages they're landing on most of all, which pages are the most popular in Google search results, as well as which countries people are from, which devices they're using when they search for your store. And that way you can understand if maybe there is a specific blog post or a specific product that is attracting most of your traffic, and then you can double down on that content, right? So SEO research is the first thing. The second thing is to communicate directly with Google. So Search Console is kind of a tool that lets you inform Google about changes you make on your website, or just when you set up a new website, you can ask Google to index and crawl that website faster than it usually would if it just found you out there on the internet. And the third main function of Search Console is to alert you about any kind of SEO issues on your website. You'll actually get emails from Google when they detect that there's something wrong with your website that you can maybe fix. For example, broken links, 404 pages, right? Maybe duplicate pages on your website, maybe to debug structured data or rich snippets if you're setting that up, if you know what I'm talking about. And even small usability issues, especially on mobile, things like the text being too small to read, the buttons being too close together, or if you have pop-ups showing on mobile and covering your content and you can't close the pop-up or something like that, that should not be happening. Google will actually email you about things like that so that you can get them fixed ASAP. So that's it. Those are the 3 main reasons that you need Google Search Console. The rest of this video is going to be a tutorial on how to set it up. One last thing that I'll mention is that your website needs to be live in order to set up Search Console, because Google needs to be able to see what's on your site. It can't be behind a password page or a coming soon page. If you're not ready to launch just yet, but you want to set it up, then I recommend just publishing for like 15 minutes while you follow this video and set it up, and then hide your website again when that's done. So that's all. Let's jump into my computer and get it done for your site right now. Okay guys, so to get started, the first thing you want to do is just search for the words Search Console. The first result will be the Google Search Console landing page. That's search.google.com/Search Console/about. And you'll land on this page. Hit the Start Now button and it'll prompt you to sign in to your Google account. Now, once you sign in, you'll be inside of Google Search Console, but you won't see this screen just yet because you need to add your website. So to do that, you're going to click on this drop down here, and there's going to be a button that says Add Property. Click on that button and you'll be shown 2 options, 2 different methods to add a property. Now, this method, the domain method, is without a doubt the better method now in 2022. It's the more modern method of doing it. And partly the reason I'm making this video is because I looked on YouTube, and even the official Shopify Help Center YouTube channel is just showing the older method of doing it through the URL prefix. So I'm actually going to show you both methods. Firstly, this one, and I'll also explain briefly why the domain method is better and what this actually means. So if you notice on this website, bianco.com.au, I have 4 properties for this website. And that's because if you have a website on Shopify or on many other platforms, you usually have 4 different versions of your website. You have the HTTP and also the HTTPS versions. And then you have both of those with the www. We might understand that that's the same website as humans, but in the eyes of Google and other machines, they see this as 4 different websites. And what you used to have to do is go to Add Property. And if you wanted Google to be aware of every version of your website, you would manually add each of those 4 versions, doing this again and again 4 times. Now we can actually add simply your domain, your .com, without the URL prefix, without the HTTPS or the www, and it would automatically keep track of all versions of your website. So that's why the domain property method is definitely better in 2022. It is just slightly more difficult because you need to edit your DNS records in your domain registry. So you might be using Namecheap like me, you might be using GoDaddy or Crazy Domains, or you might have actually purchased your domain and it's managed through Shopify. In that case, it will be in settings domains. But basically, we're just going to be adding a DNS record with the verification code that Google gives us. I'm going to demonstrate for you right now. Okay, so I'm going to show you the domain method now, and I'll show you the URL prefix method a little bit later. For the domain method, I'm going to need a site that I don't have in my search console yet. So I'm actually going to use my girlfriend's website, that is Christina.marketing. Her site by default uses the www and with HTTPS, of course. And we would have to worry about which version her primary domain is if we were using the URL prefix method. But because we're not, we can actually just grab the actual domain, totally ignoring the URL prefix. So we're just using Christina.marketing and adding that here. Click continue, and Google will give you a short little snippet of code which you can copy and add this to your DNS records. So now I'm going to go into my Namecheap account. I have Christina.marketing managed here. These are all my domains, and I'm just going to click on manage for this domain. In Namecheap, you have to click on advanced DNS to change your DNS records. Scroll down and you can see your DNS records. Ignore A records, CNAME records, MX records, all of that. Don't change any of these records. All you want to do is add a new record. You're going to look for TXT record. For the host, you're going to type the @ symbol. That's if it even asks you that. In Shopify, I think this is called name rather than host. It's the same thing. So just the @ symbol, or leave it blank if that's possible. Next, for the value, you're going to paste that verification code from Google. And next you'll have the TTL, time to live. You can leave this on automatic if you have that option. If not, 60 minutes is usually the default. Or if it doesn't ask you this at all, then that's great. Don't touch it at all, it's not very important. And then we're going to save that. And that's all we really need to do here in the DNS records. Of course, you might not be using Namecheap like me, but I hope that process is clear to you, because it's going to be almost exactly the same whether you're using Namecheap or GoDaddy or even the Shopify managed domain. If you are using Shopify managed domain, there's this page that tells you how to add a DNS record, and I'll put this link in the description of the video as well. Once you've added the DNS record, you can go back to Search Console, back to this screen, and click Verify. It'll check your verification. This might not work straight away. My verification worked right away because I actually waited like 5 minutes before recording this next clip, but for you, it may take a few minutes. If you click Verify and it doesn't work, don't panic, just wait a bit. And now we can go to that property and start using Google Search Console. That's all you need to do. There's nothing that you actually need to do inside of Shopify if you used the domain verification method with a DNS record. Now I'm going to show you the second method for adding a property using the URL prefix. If you are following along with this video and you've already done the domain verification method, then you don't need to watch the next part. Feel free to skip ahead in the video to the part where I talk about adding your sitemap and the other first steps in Google Search Console. Now, with the URL prefix, you have to be a little bit careful here. Here's my website, ed.codes. And if I highlight this and hit left, then you'll see the URL prefix, and it's just HTTPS without www, unlike Christina's website that has www as the primary domain. My primary domain is just the HTTPS, right? So that's kind of important. even though your website is still accessible through the other ones, those are going to be secondary and they're going to still redirect to the main one. So anyway, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to show you with another website that I own. This is align.com. It's also using www in the primary domain. So I'm actually going to highlight and copy all of that. And I'm going to add that to the URL prefix field, hit continue, and it's going to give me a few different options for verifying. And these options are going to be completely different from the DNS options that we saw before. The default is to add a HTML file into the files of your website. If you're on Shopify, you're not going to be able to do this. This isn't an option for us on Shopify stores. The option that you want is the HTML tag. This is simply adding a meta tag into your theme.liquid file. We're just going to copy this, and then you're going to go onto your Shopify store and go to online store themes. If your store is behind a password, then you're not going to be able to verify it because Google can't actually see it. So if your store is behind a password, then go to online store preferences and then disable the password. I'm not going to be able to do that because my store is a development store. It's not a real store. I just use it for tutorials. But on your store, you will be able to disable the password, go back to themes, and then we're going to go to actions, edit code on your main published theme. We're going to go to the theme.liquid file. You can also search it if you can't find it straight away. And then somewhere here inside of the head, you're going to see these meta tags. And we're just going to add our own meta tag from Google and hit save. And that's all you need to do. Now you can go back to Google Search Console, hit verify, and you should be verified and ready to go. Now, as I mentioned before, if you're using this URL prefix method, then the best practice is usually to add every single version of your website, which is both the HTTP and HTTPS with and without www. And also if you have other subdomains, like maybe blog.yourwebsite.com, then you would add that as a property as well. Once you've successfully set up Search Console, the first thing that you'll always want to do is add a sitemap. If you're used to other platforms where you need to generate a sitemap, you don't have to do that with Shopify. Your sitemap is already included, it's built in. All you need to do is go to your home page and then in the URL type / and sitemap.xml onto the end of your URL, and you will find your sitemap. Don't be alarmed that your sitemap only has like 4 lines here. You're probably expecting it to have like every page on your site. It does, they're just split into these kind of categories. For example, you can access your pages sitemap like this, copy and paste this into the address field, and you will find all the pages on your site listed out. Don't worry though, all Google needs is this top level sitemap. It's smart enough to go in and look into each one of these. So back here, you're just going to enter that entire address, including the URL prefix, your domain, and then /sitemap.xml. Submit. And that's it. You've added your sitemap. You've told Google, this is my website, and this is a list of all the pages on my website. The next thing that you might want to do is connect your Google Analytics account with Search Console so that Google Analytics has all of the data that Search Console collects, and you're able to see this through acquisition and under the Search Console drop-down here. If you don't have this set up yet, then go to Acquisition Search Console, click on anything here, and you'll see that you don't have it set up yet. So you have this button, Set up Search Console Data Sharing, and this just lands you on your general property settings, right, inside Google Analytics, which you can also access simply by going to Admin in the sidebar, and then here, going to Property Settings. It's the same page. Down here, you'll find a button saying Adjust Search Console. Click on that. You won't even notice this, but this is a very small button saying Add, and that takes you to Google Search Console where you can select the property that you just set up. Make sure you select the right one for the right website. Again, inside Search Console, this shows you all your Google Analytics properties. So we're going to select the Google Analytics account now that we want to associate. Hit continue, and it's just confirming that Search Console data will now be visible in Google Analytics, and also some Google Analytics data will be visible in Search Console. So that's great. Click Associate, and you're done. Now, when we go again in Analytics, we go to Acquisition, Search Console, and we look at something here. Now we should actually have data. So now we can actually see how many people landed on these pages from Google search. Though to be honest, if you're like me, I don't know Google Analytics that well. So if you're not a marketer or SEO person, you might prefer to just use the view in Search Console, because this is a lot more simplified, a lot easier to understand than Google Analytics. So usually what I will do is briefly look at the queries that are bringing people to my site, but kind of ignore the numbers here, because when you look at queries, it's not the real numbers. You'll see more realistic numbers when you go to pages here. As you can see, these numbers are much higher because this is a more reliable view, and Google doesn't share all of the queries that people are using. So yeah, I generally look at pages to see which pages are doing best. I also look at countries, devices. This is pretty useful. Also keep in mind that you won't see all of this data straight away. It needs time to actually gather all of this data and for these things to actually happen, for people to be clicking and visiting your store, right? So Google Search Console is not something that you use daily or even weekly. It's more like once a month. You might go in here to check what's going on, any new queries, any new pages that are getting more popular. You would also go into Search Console whenever you make changes to your website. So if you've added new products or new collections, that's a good time to log into Search Console and re-upload your sitemap. What you can also do for new pages, new products or collections, is click here on URL inspection, and you can grab a link to a product page. This is just a demo product, and paste that in here, the entire URL. And then Google is going to see if it has that page indexed. If it's a new page, then it won't. You'll see that for my page that the URL is on Google. But if you do this for a new page, it will say URL is not on Google. And then what you can do is click the request indexing button, and that might actually index the page faster than it otherwise would. So as you can see, indexing is requested and the URL was added to a priority crawl queue. On this page, you'll also see some other interesting checks. For example, on my product page, I have a YouTube video embedded, and Google actually detects that. And it means that when people search and this page comes up, it might come up with that video in a little thumbnail. So that's known as a rich search result, or a type of rich search results. You'll also have this product snippets section here, and this is also for rich snippets. For example, products with reviews might have stars on the search results page in Google, and you can check here if everything is working okay. One little thing that I'll mention is that this yellow non-critical issues is nothing to worry about. You should be worried when they're red, and then it will call it an error rather than a non-critical issue. You'll also see checks like mobile usability that I mentioned in the intro of this video, and you can check all of these in bulk as well. For example, mobile usability by clicking here in the sidebar and seeing if all of your pages are usable on mobile, or if there are some pages that have some problems on mobile. Okay guys, I think that's enough for one video. It's already a lot longer than I expected. If you have any questions, if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about Shopify SEO in general, I'd love to address that in future videos. I want to make more videos on SEO in general because there's a lot of people with a marketing background talking about SEO on YouTube, but not a lot of technical people with like a web development background talking about that technical side of SEO. So I think I can add a bit to that. And yeah, that's it. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the Discord group. You'll find the info in the description. And also, if you want to hear more from me, please sign up to my newsletter, which you will also find in the description of this video. Until next time, bye.